Let's go back to the beginning. Can you kind of give us a timeline as to when the family arrived and what proceeded?
Well, the family, from what I understand that we learned during the investigation, arrived the evening prior to July 10th, sometime fairly close to dark on Thursday, July 9th. And then they went to town in DeOrr, and upon returning, they supposedly thought they were turning their child over to their grandfather, the child's great-grandfather. They went down to the creek, which was right next to the campground, and within 10 to 15 minutes, they go up to find their child to show him some fish in the stream, and he's nowhere to be found. And grandfather assumes he's gone down to them because he was within their line of sight and wasn't too far from the campground. They started their initial search and eventually called 911 when they realized they couldn't find the child.
Where was Mr. Renwand during all of this?
He was in the same general proximity. The creek is just over the bank. He's downstream, they're upstream. They're all within probably 100 to 150 feet of each other.
Very close proximity.
Very close.
So they call 911, you guys arrive and begin searching.
Correct.
And at this point, were their vehicles searched, the tents? I guess everything out there was probably searched.
We did I think a very thorough investigation. We took 2 initial track dogs in, one of them being mine and one being Salmon Police Department. They're trained to search for people who are lost. They were given a scent. They went from the campground up to the reservoir and then back to the campground. And we searched everywhere a small child could easily hide or climb into or fall into.
And nothing.
And we found absolutely nothing.
Talk a little bit about the cremains that were dumped into because the dogs were getting a scent,
Right.
weren't they?
Unbeknownst to us, while we were doing our grid search, someone came in and wanted to deposit cremains of a loved one at that site. And I'm assuming it's a favorite site of their loved one. And without thinking, they deposited these cremains, not realizing they were in the middle of a crime scene and what it would do. Within a couple days, our dogs are telling us we need to spend more time up at the reservoir. And so we dove it for 2 or 3 more days and put side scan sonar. And then we found out from one of our BLM rangers that they stopped this individual coming out and were informed that they had deposited some cremains in the reservoir.
Had DeOrr been in the reservoir, his body would have been recovered by now.
We believe so. Yeah, we really believe so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The store. Did the family go down to the store there in DeOrr, and was there any surveillance captured of this boy, surveillance video?
I don't believe they have a surveillance, but we have a receipt that we've documented that they purchased certain items. They were on the receipt. The time was stamped on the receipt. And so we believe, that's where they went.
It was that Friday morning?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Do you know, did they stop any other places on their way up to DeOrr?
Yeah, they stopped to get some diesel fuel.
Diesel fuel.
Yeah.
Any surveillance video at that gas
No,
station?
no.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if there's a camera anywhere in DeOrr.
Well, yeah,
it's a real small
remote.
community.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as far as the private investigator told us a few days ago that Jessica said that there was an older gentleman that may have been staring at DeOrr. Have you heard anything about that?
Just the report. I don't know that we confirmed who that individual is, but if we had to go look for everybody that stared at you personally or anybody for any type of crime, it'd be a pretty difficult undertaking, to check those stories out. But yes, we have heard that information.
How much of the area up there was searched? It was, you guys searched for 2-3 weeks, didn't you, before you officially scaled back?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost a 3-mile radius.
And no sign.
Absolutely none.
Do you believe it was an abduction?
You know, personally, I think an abduction is one of the least likely events. Primarily, the information we have is Grandpa's watching the child. He tells me he looks away momentarily. When he looks back, he's gone, and he's assumed he's gone over the bank. Right where Grandpa's sitting, he's within 20 to 30 yards of the only roadway into the campground. And absolutely no one was seen at that lower campground coming or going. And when my personnel went in, nobody was seen leaving. So I think you know, I mean, I can't completely rule it out, but it's one of the least likely things that occurred.
What can you say about Mr. Rainwand?
At this point, he's still cooperating. You know, I'm not getting any feeling that he's not being truthful. I think he's been very truthful, and I appreciate his help. He's come up to the area on a second occasion with me, and until we find a piece of evidence or locate anything that tells me otherwise, I think he's being very truthful.
How about the parents and the grandfather?
You know, I think all three, those three have been very cooperative. They've given us everything we've asked for, and so I feel real good about the parents and the grandfather also.
The FBI would it be correct to say they've taken over, or I guess they're working with you?
They're working with us. We've given them lots of items to analyze behaviorally. And we've given them some physical evidence. I can't go into those details, but we're basically trying to cover all of our bases, and we're looking for any clue whatsoever that might help us resolve this.
And you said Bonneville's also assisting, mainly because
Very
the
much
family
so.
lives there.
Very much so.
Can you say anything about how Isaac ended up on the trip?
You know, I hate to go into too many details. I mean, obviously there's a relationship between him and Grandpa. You know, I mean they're friends. But prior to that trip, he had never met Mom or Dad.
The family says their vehicles and cars were searched, which it sounds like in any case, that would be standard operating procedure.
You know, even though we searched them that night, you know, you always second guess, did we miss something? Could he have been in another compartment? Did we not search everything? So, yeah, everything's been searched at least a couple times, if not more.
If you guys as a department been handling this, I mean, that's a lot of manpower and hours, and I'm sure a little bit of frustration trying to find this kid.
Oh, it's definitely been a challenge. We've got some fabulous volunteers. Our search and rescue is second to none, and they've been overwhelmed by this. We've had some issues on stress that we've had to deal with, and our office is, my chief deputy has spent endless hours up there. He's climbed literally up to the top of some of the peaks up there. He's walked into some of the old dens of some of the animals that live in those areas, and he's been frantically searching for a clue, and it's been overwhelming. I mean, there's been days I've been the only patrolman on the road because all my personnel are up there working at the scene.
Have you ruled out a wild animal? I guess, has anything been ruled out?
Absolutely nothing has been ruled out.
There could have been some interference from, you know, a predator at some time in the scenario, whether beginning or partway through, or, you don't know.
We had bears and wolves running literally through camp while we were searching.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And there's wolf dens nearby, correct? I mean,
well, some old ones. We haven't found any fresh dens, but just over the top of the divide there is the Pacimoroi, and we've understood they've had some issues over there with some wolves, and they've taken out some of the wolves in order to eliminate the problem. So,
where do you guys go from here?
Well, we wait until we get our report from the FBI. That's going to be critical. And we're still asking the public to help us if they have any information. To identify a 2.5-year-old with blonde hair, I'm not sure that's a positive thing for our office, because every 2.5-year-old with blonde hair looks just like DeOrr. And so I'm asking the public if they know the family and they didn't have a 2.5-year-old prior to this time period, that's one I want to look at closely. But if it's somebody they don't know, to contact their local law enforcement and have them follow up for us, because it's just so overwhelming for our small office.
Yeah, have you guys just been bombarded with tips?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What are your thoughts about the private investigator? I guess that's just something the family's doing on their own to...
Yep, totally. Kudos to them for, looking for more help. I can only do so much, and maybe he can turn up something that we've missed. But I think, he primarily thinks it's an abduction, and I think that's very remote.
And as far as the lie detector test, you said you couldn't say much about.
They've all four have voluntarily taken polygraphs, and right now those have been turned over to the FBI along with the statements, and I would prefer to have them look at the reports and look at the evaluations on the polygraph to make sure we're looking at everything correctly and that we didn't miss anything.
At this point, would you feel comfortable saying something criminal happened?
No.
Okay.
No, not at all.